Before we take care of number 33 here, I want to mention there's going to be 4 types of conversions. All right, let me slide this in. We're going to need to change from percent to decimal, from percent to fraction, from decimal to percent, and then from fraction to percent. So I'll discuss the logic of each and then maybe summarize the result here. And it's very important to understand the logic because I can't show you every situation you'll ever be given, but the logic is always there. So if you understand the logic, you'll have something to fall back on. To start out, the percent sign, I'll put it way over here. We use this sign because we don't feel like writing per 100. Okay, this sign really means over 100. It's just easier to write it this way. It has a numerical value, so you can't just eliminate it by erasing it or crossing it out. You have to account for this. All right. So let's see how that plays out. They want us to write this percent as a decimal. So if we have 3%, we're supposed to write that as a decimal. Well, what does that really mean? Again, this symbol right here, all right, that means I'll say 1/100th. I could have indicated it here. Here I just said it means per 100. So it's understandable I can have a 1 in the numerator. All right, so 3% is really, I'll do this in 2 steps, but usually you'll just do it in 1. 3 is really 3 over 1. Okay? In this case, it turns out it would be easier. If I was to multiply these, what would I have? I would have 3 over 100. Okay? And 3 over 100, they want this written as a decimal. This is 3/100ths. If you know that 3/100ths is written 0.03, you can do that immediately. If you don't know how that what this is supposed to look like, you do what it says. 3 divided by 100. Here's 3 divided by 100. You notice pretty quickly it doesn't fit. So you put in a decimal point, tell the world, load up on some zeros. Does 100 go into 30? No. Or a better way to say it maybe is, how many times does 100 go into 30? 0 times. So you move over to your next digit. How many times does 100 go into 300? Why, it goes in 3 times. And there'd be nothing left over. So we went from this way of writing it to this way of writing it. So what did we really do? We had a 3. We had 3%. And notice the decimal was sitting right here. Right? Anytime you have a number, the decimal is always sitting there. If we get rid of the percent sign, the decimal moves away 2 spaces. All right? So again, let me put this in here. If I'm to change from decimal to percent, I'm sorry, if I'm to change from percent to decimal, if I'm given, let's say, 274%, if I want to write it without this symbol, I simply move the decimal away 2 spaces. Okay? So if you get rid of your percent sign, the result is you move the decimal away 2 spaces. Can't really see that decimal, darn it. Let me make that more clear. Cover this up a little. And now that should be clear. Okay. Taking a look at the next one. This will be number 34. Excuse me. It'll be number 35. Okay. Let's bring that in here. Okay, and on this one they want to go from percent to fraction. Okay. In this case, just moving the decimal 2 places isn't going to help us because they want to see a fraction or mixed number. So I'm going to resort back to the logic here. This means that it's really sitting over 100. It's just easier to write it that way. Okay, so we have 8.5 sitting over top of 100. So let's get our 8.5 up there. 8 5/10, but I could have written this 8.5 over 1 times 1/100th, but then when I multiplied I would just get to right here. And now notice they want this written as a fraction or mixed number, and that looks rather odd to have a decimal in the middle of a fraction. So how can I move this decimal 1 place? If I multiply by 10, the decimal will move 1 place. But I can't just walk up and multiply by 10. I can only multiply by a 1. 10 over 10 is 1. So this would give me 85 over 1,000. And you'll have to reduce this. So 5 goes into 85. 5 goes in there 17 times. 5 goes in there 200 times. Okay. So 8.5% is the exact same amount of stuff as 17 200ths. All right. And when we look at number 38, they still want us. Well, let me see. I'll wait before I summarize this. If you look at number 38, they still want us to write the percent as a fraction. Okay, so again, I'll resort to the meaning here. This percent symbol means per 100. Okay, so I'm going to write that as 1/100th. That's really what it means. And I want to multiply 9 1/4 by 1/100th. I'm trying to change this up so I can get rid of that sign, the percent sign. So I can't multiply a mixed number. This has to be a fraction. So I'm going to change this to an improper fraction. 4 times 9 is 36 plus 1. That's 37 over 4. Okay. All I've done is rewrite 9 1/4 as 37 fourths. And nothing's going to simplify, nothing's going to clean up. I can just multiply straight across, and I get 37 over 400. So 9 1/4% is 37 400ths. There are other ways to get there, but that's how I chose. So let's see if our quick little summary, maybe on the summary percent to fraction I'll do it a little bit different. All right, because I didn't give you an example where you had, say, I'll do one that you might be familiar with. If you have 3/4%, this percent sign means per 100. I'll use a different color here. So this means 1/100th. That's what this sign means. Okay. And the 3/4 will just drop down. And now you're basically, anytime you have a number next to a symbol, a letter, a grouping symbol, anything, that's math shorthand for multiply. So I perhaps should have emphasized that. All right, so when we multiply, you get 3/400ths. So 3/4% is 3/400ths. All right. So to change from percent to fraction, you're usually just going to turn this into a fraction and multiply. Okay. Let's take a look at our next one. It'll be 41, and we're going to go from decimal to percent. And we have, now there's no percent sign here to start, and I'm not allowed to just walk up and write a percent sign. Percent sign has a very specific meaning, right? So we've been saying that a percent sign means, I'm trying to think of an efficient way to show this. All right, so a percent sign means, well, I'll write my little percent sign. That really means that you have 1/100th. Okay, that's another way of writing the percent sign. It's supposed to be an arrow there. Okay. And I'm not allowed to just walk up and multiply by 1/100th. I can walk up and multiply by 1, which would be, and this is going to be a funny looking one. If I have 100, notice if I'm multiplying these two things, I should have made a nice dot. If I multiply these, what do I end up with? 100 over 100, which is just a 1. Okay, so I'm kind of breaking it up here. If I multiply this by 100, all I'm going to do is move the decimal 2 places. Okay? So what I'm going to do is sort of ignore this part of writing it, and instead of writing this, I'm going to put a percent sign. Okay? So watch how that works. We've got if I multiply by 100, I move the decimal 2 places. And if I divide by 100, I can also do that by writing a percent sign. So to change from this decimal to a percent, you move the decimal 2 places towards it and put a percent sign. And again, what I'm really doing is multiplying by 100 over 100, but instead of writing in the denominator, I'm writing a percent sign. So let's see if we can maybe summarize that with a slightly different one. When I go from decimal to percent, if I am given, let's say 8.5, if I want to put in a percent sign, I move the decimal 2 spaces towards the percent sign. I'll need to hold that space with a 0. And put in my percent sign. Again, by moving it 2 spaces, I'm multiplying by 100. By putting in a percent sign, I'm dividing by 100. So that's why I haven't changed the value, but I've certainly changed the way this looks. Okay? 8 5/10 is the exact same thing as 850%. And then let's see, our last one comes in number 46. All right, come here, 46. You're not going anywhere. Let me slide this down for a moment. We're to write the fraction or mixed number as a percent. Okay, so again, I'm trying to put in a percent sign. That percent sign has a very specific meaning, so I can't just walk up and put it there. I have to do so in a balanced way. Alright, so the percent sign really stands for one over 100. I'm not allowed to multiply by 1/100th. I can multiply by 1. So if I have 100 over 100, that's a funny looking 1, and I've kind of split it up into a very funny looking 1. But if I multiply by this value, I'm not going to change the value of what I'm given. It's just going to look different. All right. If I'm trying to multiply, and again, what's in pink here is not actually going to get written in this form. It's going to get written in the form of a percent sign. All right. So this pink is just going to get written this way. All right. And let's see, 8 9/10. Well, if I'm trying to multiply by some kind of fraction, I can't use a mixed number. I need a fraction. So that's 80 9/10 times 100 over 1. Remember, we're going to kind of ignore that, and we'll just plug it in at the end. Notice we can reduce here. I'm multiplying, so if I want to reduce, I can. So let's go ahead and do that. Might make our lives easier. So I can divide by 10, divide by 10. 89 times 10 is going to be 890. So I simply have to write 890%. Okay. If I put in a percent sign, this stands for divide by 100. So to keep it balanced, I have to multiply by 100. Sometimes you're actually going to want to, I'll leave it at that. Okay, so let me summarize that. Again, I want to emphasize 8 9/10 is the exact same amount of stuff as what you're seeing right here, 890%. It just sure looks a lot different. Okay. All right, so to finish out our little chart here, if you're going from fraction to percent, maybe this is the one I was really thinking about at the beginning. If I have the fraction 3/4, Okay. Here, notice I had 3/4%, so that was a different animal. It looks, you know, this is the same as 3/4% is 3/400ths. But if you have just the fraction 3/4 and you want to change it to a percent, I'm going to multiply by I can't just multiply by 100. This sign, the percent sign, stands for 1/100th. But again, I'm not going to write this. All I'm going to do is put in my percent sign in front of the answer. And I can reduce before I multiply. 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 100. 25 times. 3 times 25 is 75. Okay? So if I have the fraction 3/4, that's the same as the percentage 75%. This chart gives you basically a recap. It won't solve every problem you'll ever be given, but it sort of includes the logic, and it also stresses the shortcut. And I want to do one other thing here. I want to emphasize that it went that way. Okay.